Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Steve Scheidler.
And I'm Megan Scheidner, and today we're going to talk about that all-important topic, teens, sex, and dating.
All right, now you got two old people up here talking about teens, sex, and dating, but actually this is a serious topic, and as parents, this is one of those areas that is difficult for us to weigh in, and it's caused a lot of hurt and pain, and there's a lot of misunderstanding that goes on over the years. Every family has a little different standard as we learned kind of raising our children. Yes. And when they were little, it was a whole lot easier, right? We didn't get into the more complicated teenage stuff and then, wanting to go off on relationships with other people and wish as we did that they would stay 6 and 7 years old. They did not, and they actually grew up, right? And so over the years, as they were approaching their teen years, Megan and I began to discuss, what is our standard? What does the Bible have to say about courting or dating? And there are families that believe in strictly just courtship, and that's their family standard. And there's varying degrees of what courtship means to those other families. There are families that believe in just, dating, kind of in a traditional American car dating type of scenario. There are those that have kind of a hybrid of the whole thing called dorting, right? Yeah. Dating and courting. It's a little bit of both. Megan and I, over the years, have kind of started out sort of semi in the courting camp, I would say. Is that fair enough?
Yep.
And with our older children, we said, I think a courtship model is pretty good. We had searched out the scriptures. And so we were going to be involved in helping them alongside, not doing it for them, but going alongside our children and helping them pick that life partner who they were going to spend the rest of their lives with. Now, one of the things, and I know this from being a pastor for years and counseling a lot of couples and doing a lot of marriages and doing premarital counseling and counseling of marriages that are struggling as well, that people are attracted to each other for all the wrong reasons, all right? We're attracted at the physical appearance on the outside. A girl looks at a guy and goes, wow, he's cute. A guy looks at a girl, wow, she's really cute. We're attracted to each other physically. And then we begin to start into a relationship, and maybe our personalities mesh and we like each other. Very little is done in terms of searching out somebody else's character. Are you compatible? Is this a person that you could spend the rest of your life with? Sadly, after they get married, they walk down the aisle and get married, then they begin to get into the character side of things and realize that young lady that said, well, I can fix all those flaws I saw. One of the really sad truths is you can't. And what I would say to young couples before we ever did the wedding ceremony is if he's got some flaws, can you live with those flaws if they're 5 times worse? And she would always say, oh, they won't be 5 times worse, And in the back of her mind, she's thinking, I'll fix that. Guys are doing the same thing on their side as well. And so with that in mind, we get attracted to each other for all the wrong reasons. So I would say, and I'm just trying to be vulnerable here about some of the things that we did maybe wrong in the beginning. I think we were a little over-controlling with our older children. Too tight
Yep.
Constraints with them in terms of the courtship model. Here's an expression I like to use, parental involved dating. I think that's what we do. I've never heard that expression before, but we're parentally involved. We want to be involved in the life of our kids, but we allow them to date. But it's got to be age appropriate, all right? If you're pushing your 11 or 12-year-old out into the dating world because every other 11 or 12-year-old, that's too early. They're not ready for it. And it's not an actual age, it's kind of more of a maturity thing.
Right.
And then how long is it until they could actually get married? I mean, the biblical standard is you're moving towards marriage, right? And so if you're 13, 14 years old, it's going to be a long time before you can get married. We talked to our children as they were growing up saying, hey, just be patient, be disciplined. We're on your team. We're not against you. We don't want you to be single for the rest of your life. Trust me. I want you to get married. I want you to move along, right? And of course, the older ones were helpful with that now because they've started their own families and they come alongside and go, just be patient, all right? Yeah. Don't blow it in the beginning. Get to learn to know each other. Delve into the character side. See if you're compatible a little bit. We'll talk in a little bit about standards and that sort of thing, about what's physically acceptable and what isn't. But I just wanted to kind of set that, foundation for what we consider appropriate in terms of dating or courting.
Right, and we want to talk about 2 different age groups, really.
Right.
Because in this culture, middle school is really where dating starts for most kids.
Right.
If you go to a public school, the middle school students are dating. Now, is that appropriate? We would say no, but your middle school kids are going to have crushes on each other.
Right.
And we know too many parents who say, oh, you shouldn't have that crush. Stop having a crush. You shouldn't have those feelings. Ladies and gentlemen, God put those feelings there, right? And telling a child not to have them, it's like we've said in other sessions, you can't force somebody to potty train. You can't force a middle schooler to not have a crush on someone. but we come alongside them. Often middle schools have dances. Are we going to say, oh, no, you can't go to a dance because that's a date? No, you know what it is? It's an opportunity for two friends to learn how to respect one another, treat one another in an appropriate way. We always tease our kids that if mommy and daddy have to drive you, it's definitely not a date, right? Because a date, mommy and daddy don't drive. But as middle schoolers, we want them to begin that process of learning to understand the opposite sex. Now, how can we mess it up? Moms, we mess it up when we say things to them like, oh, he's such a nice boy. Maybe someday you'll marry him. Oh, no. These are middle schoolers. We want to teach into, this is a great friend. What I want for my kids when they walk down the aisle is that they walk down the aisle or stand at the end of the aisle to meet their best friend. And so in middle school, young ladies and young men are learning how to relate to one another. It's not dating, it's groups of friends hanging out. And I would say that to them. If they say, oh, he's my boyfriend, you say, no, you know what, he's a friend who's a boy. And how does he treat you? And how do you treat him? And how do you speak to one another? We're beginning that process. But as your kids enter high school and as they get into the later high school years, there are going to come opportunities for them to date. And so you need to be involved as a parent, not telling them who to date and not going on their dates with them, but asking them good questions and helping them to ask good questions. At that age, they really need to become somewhat of evaluators. They need to evaluate that person they're interested in for what's below the skin, right? What goes deeper than the skin. Now, Steve, honestly, you were attracted to me for my rapier wit, I think.
Yes, you're such a
clever
gal.
It needs to go deeper than that. And so we're going to walk with our kids through that process. What happens if we don't? If we just say, date whoever, and oh, he's your boyfriend, and you're so cute, and maybe you'll marry him someday, is we're setting our kids up for hurt after hurt after hurt. And then they go into marriage with a damaged heart. And that's not what we want for them. So until they're at an age where they really could be serious about getting married, what we want to do is say to them, get to know this person, get to know their character, let them know your character and what's really there. Don't be an advertiser, right? Sometimes our kids slip into that advertising phase of they look one way on the outside, but what's really going on the inside is something different. So talk them through that process, help them understand it so that they begin to make wise choices in those friendships that eventually are going to end up, they're going to end up marrying one of those friends. And so you want them to build that best friend relationship. And then obviously putting parameters for protection around their purity, which is what you're going to talk about next.
Yeah, so let's talk about the sex part of the title, all right? What's appropriate and what's inappropriate in terms of physical activity for young people. And again, I know if you're watching this and you're a young person, you're going, you two people are old. What do you know about this, all right? Well, you'll be there someday and you'll understand. I wasn't always old. I was a teenager, and I understand exactly what was going on back then. And and I have a little confession to make to you, sweetie, at this point.
Yes.
You said I was attracted to you for your rapier wit. It actually goes back to first grade when I had a crush on Debbie Sprinkle. And Debbie Sprinkle was really the love of my life back in first grade. And you're the woman that most remembers most. Is
I'm the
Debbie.
most like Debbie?
Yes, and I've lost track of her over the years.
There you
so
go.
Debbie, if you're out there.
Good to know after all these years.
Okay. So, all right, now back on
later.
track, right? So 1 Corinthians 7 and verse 11 talks about this. It's good for a man not to touch a woman. And that is talking about in all ways possible. It's talking about the physical touching of a woman. Now, after these verses, it starts to talk about getting married. And if you can't wait to get married, you should come together under marriage. And a man's body is not his own and a woman's body is not hers. They belong to the other person. But that's all in the context of being married. Before that, it's not appropriate for a man to touch a woman. Now, having said that, you're going to have to set your own family standard on this. Some families say, we don't even hold hands. We don't allow our children to hold hands. I think that's probably a little bit over the top, all right? No hugging of females. I think that's a little over the top. What about kissing? Is that going to be appropriate before you get married? So I've married couples where it was their first kiss when they came down the aisle. That was a decision that they came to. I didn't talk to them about that. But you have to decide what your family standard is going to be in that regard. Now, as far as fondling and petting and all those other things go, I think the scriptures are clearly off limits on that. It says in the Bible that fornication is wrong. Now, the common standard these days among the dating set is this, especially the Christian dating set. I can do anything as long as it's not intercourse, right? And so there's all sorts of sexual stuff going on out there, and everybody says, yeah, but I didn't do the deed. All right, that's being a technical virgin. That's perverting the scriptures. That's not God's ideal for you, and it's not acceptable. And so you got to go dig into the Word of God and say, okay, what does God expect from me? Because God always has your best intentions in mind. He's not cruel. He's not trying to keep you away from it. He gave you those desires you have to get together with the opposite sex, but you've got to apply a little bit of discipline in this process.
Self-control.
Self-control, and wait until it's appropriate. Ladies, you have to have some self-respect. If that guy's trying to get something off of you, all right, and he keeps telling you he loves you, you say to him, I need a ring, a date, and when we're down at the end of the aisle, then we can talk about it, all right? And then you get to open up to him like nobody else. But if he's not going to be that committed to you, then you don't give it up for him, all right? And it goes both ways. So I think that's probably a balanced way to approach it.
Yeah, and parents, again, you need to be students of your kids. And so there may be children in your family that holding hands is no problem.
Right.
But there may be children in your family that holding hands is the gateway to more.
More things.
And so you need to have that discussion with them, remembering that these are teenagers. They're not little children. And so you're not going to say, here's what you must do. It's a dialogue and a conversation. It's asking them good questions, right? It's letting them talk to you about what's going on in their lives. Because really, you could legislate the outside, but what goes on in the heart is what's going to legislate what happens between they and someone else, sexually speaking.
Okay, so what feeds these sexual appetites that we're talking about?
Well, there's a couple things. For boys, obviously, access to pornography is going to feed a sexual appetite, and they're going to struggle in a dating relationship because they have a wrong view of women, and they have a wrong view of God's ideal for sex. But I want you to think a little further than pornography. Video games present that same wrong view of women. If you look at the video games that are presented to our young men, all of those, we would say, no, they're violent. Okay, they may be violent, but they also portray women in a very troubling way. Those would feed that sexual appetite for young men. But young women are just as in danger, right? Romance novels, chick flicks, they all build this hunger for Prince Charming, right? And the guy who's going to get rid of all their problems. And obviously their parents don't understand them, but this guy does. And you have to be careful about what you're letting your children feed on. And again, you may have girls that it doesn't matter at all. I have a friend whose daughter was in love with horses until she was about ready to get married. And romance novels might not have affected her in the same way. One of our daughters, oh my. You know, she, at 6 years old, she was talking about what her husband was going to be like, and she just had a bent that way. So we needed to be careful the things that we allowed to come into her life that built wrong expectations and wrong desires. Now, moms and dads, I want to talk to you for just a minute, because we are too often part of the problem. And so moms, I said before, you don't want to set it up for your kids with, oh, maybe you're going to marry him, or a teenage couple that's in a relationship and you like the guy so much that your daughter says, you know, I think we're going to end it and you're heartbroken, okay? That's not the role you want to be in. You want to be the one who helps them evaluate wisely. Ask good questions. What did you talk about on your date? Was he a gentleman? Did he hold the door? How does he talk about his mother and his sisters?
How does he treat his mother?
How does he treat his mother and his sisters?
Right, absolutely.
That's your role as a mom, right? Don't get in the silly princess, you know, we're headed down the aisle stuff till you are headed down the aisle, right? But be that voice of reason as an older woman. And dads, you know, it's funny and you see memes and men talk about it, but the whole idea of when a young man shows up, I've got my gun and I'm waiting for him, is not biblical. You are not an aggressive protector of your property. You are the father of a young woman, and any young man who comes to your door is coming, and you ought to have the attitude and the intent of, I want to get to know you. I want to be an older spiritual man in your life. I want to be a mentor. When you set up that aggressive first relationship with a young man, he is never going to come to you for counsel.
Right.
He's never going to come and say, you know, your daughter and I are struggling in this area, and can you give me some counsel? He's going to see you as the enemy and an adversary, rather than someone who's going to come alongside and help him in this relationship with your daughter.
Yeah. So guys, I know it makes it for a funny joke, but don't have the gun out cleaning it when he comes on the first date, all right? That's just, you know.
Inappropriate.
It is inappropriate. And you want to have a discipling relationship with that young man, and any young man might be the potential guy. All right, so we need to make an investment in that relationship. So Megan, that's very well said. All right, so with all of that said, there needs to be a dialogue. And so mom and dad, don't avoid that conversation with your children. Talk about it earlier rather than later, and listen. Listen to what they're telling you. Be a student of their heart. Understand where they're coming from. 8 children, all right, with us. Each one of them is a little bit different. Did we have to vary the standard? No, the standard pretty much stayed the same, but the path to the standard was different for each one of the children. Some children wanted a little more involvement, some wanted a little bit less, but none of them said, Mom and Dad, you're out of it altogether, all right? Because we had a good relationship with them. They wanted us to go on this journey with them, but we listened to the voice of each one of our children so that we didn't do a lot of damage in the long run, and we have an ongoing relationship with them, and we can be parentally involved in their dating.
Right.
Right? Make sense?
Right. Help your kids build that best friend relationship so that when you hand off your daughter or you take on a new son, you're taking on a part of your family that you can love.
There you go. Teens, sex, and dating with parenting counsel you can trust. I'm Dr. Steve Scheibner.
And I'm Megan Scheibner.